Welcome to this deep dive. We're so glad you're joining us today. Usually, when you go for a walk in the woods, there's this expectation that you're just like looking at a painting.
Right, just passively consuming the scenery.
Exactly. You see the green trees, the nice flowers, and you just sort of take it in. But, we are entirely missing the underlying math right in front of us.
Yeah, we treat nature like a visually pleasing backdrop instead of this highly optimized structural blueprint.
And that is exactly what we are unpacking in today's deep dive. We've got our hands on this fascinating guide exploring the what they call the sacred architecture of everyday nature walks.
It's such a wild premise, isn't it?
Oh, totally wild. The idea that life follows a very specific geometric logic designed for efficiency, resilience, and beauty. Our mission today is to completely change how you experience a simple stroll.
It really is a profound mindset shift. Because, when you start recognizing these shapes and the actual mechanisms behind them, nature stops being scenery and it transforms into an active teacher.
Okay, so let's unpack this. The guide suggests that to really understand this architecture, we have to start small.
Right. Look at how life grows on the individual level first.
Yeah, exactly, before zooming out to see how those individuals connect in a forest. So let's talk about the spiral. We see Fibonacci spirals everywhere, like sunflower seeds, snail shells. Why is nature so obsessed with this shape?
Well, it really comes down to the mechanics of physical growth.
Right.
As an organism grows, it needs to expand without losing its original proportions.
Okay,
Right.
yeah.
So a Fibonacci spiral allows a snail to grow its shell larger and larger without having to build a completely new shape from scratch.
Oh, so they don't reinvent the wheel?
Exactly. It expands outward while staying mathematically anchored to its center. The guide actually calls this staying anchored to a core truth.
So it's pure efficiency. You just build the next size up using the exact same blueprint. Wait, is that like a physical reminder that you can expand your comfort zone as long as you stay tethered to that internal still point?
Precisely. That is spot on. And that exact same efficiency, repeating a successful blueprint, well, that drives fractals too.
Oh, right, fractals.
Think of an oak tree. The way its trunk splits into large branches follows the exact same biological command that dictates how those branches split into twigs.
Wait, really? Even down to the leaves?
Yes, even how the microscopic veins look inside a single leaf. It's called self-similarity.
That is wild. So a complex tree is essentially just a simple biological rule put on a loop.
Yes, exactly. The source refers to these repeating micro-rules as small acts of integrity.
Small acts of integrity. I like that.
Because the structural integrity of the massive tree literally depends on that tiny mathematical rule working perfectly at the leaf level. The part mirrors the whole.
Okay, that makes total sense for one tree, but trees die, leaves fall. Once you see how the part mirrors the whole, how does this math handle the messiness of an entire connected ecosystem?
That's where the guide shifts to circles, and they use this great term, right-sizedness.
Right-sizedness. Okay, break that down for me.
Well, the circle represents a closed loop. So in nature, a fallen oak log doesn't just sit there as waste.
Right, it rots.
Exactly. It becomes a perfectly proportioned nursery for moss and mushrooms.
Mm.
Right-sizedness means there are literally no dead ends.
Oh, wow. Every output is mechanically recycled to become a perfectly sized input for something else.
Exactly.
Which actually brings up something I noticed while reading this. Nature doesn't really do straight lines in its purest state.
It really doesn't know.
So I have to ask, is our human obsession with rigid straight line grids why we feel so disconnected from natural balance? Like, are we forcing a geometry that isn't real?
That is such a brilliant question. Because when nature needs to build rigid community structures, it doesn't use a grid of squares. It uses the hexagon.
Right, like beehives.
Yes, think of beehives.
Okay, but why hexagons? Like, why not pack circles together or just build little square boxes?
Well, if you pack circles together, you leave empty gaps, right?
Oh, yeah, true.
And if you use squares or triangles, you actually have to generate a lot more wax to build the walls. The hexagon is the mathematical sweet spot.
Wait, so it fills the space perfectly?
Completely. It fills the space completely while using the absolute least amount of material to create the maximum strength. The guide calls this the protective social buffer.
Oh. So community literally has a geometric shape.
Yes.
No.
By perfectly sharing walls, they create a structure far stronger than if they each built their own individual shape.
Shared purpose creates maximum strength. I love that.
Right. And finally, the guide talks about symmetry, like butterfly wings. It gets a bit philosophical here, stating symmetry is nature's way of naturally resolving cognitive dissonance to achieve the alchemy of vulnerability.
Yeah, I have to admit, I highlighted that section with a giant question mark.
I figured you might.
I mean, alchemy of vulnerability. That sounds like a self-help retreat, not biology. What does that actually mean mechanically?
Fair pushback. Mechanically, it just means physical balance.
Yeah.
A butterfly is incredibly fragile. It's vulnerable. If its wings aren't perfectly symmetrical, it literally can't fly straight. So symmetry is the biological resolution of competing physical forces.
Ah, so by following an internal blueprint to balance its weight perfectly, it resolves the dissonance of gravity and wind.
Exactly, which allows something incredibly fragile to survive.
Okay, that makes so much more sense. So what does this all mean for you listening right now? Well, it's time to challenge yourself to a geometry spotting walk.
Highly recommend it.
Next time you go outside, leave the digital cages at home. Look for a spiral, a fractal, or a circular loop.
Yeah, realize you aren't just walking through a pretty backdrop.
Exactly. You are part of a highly intentional geometric prayer.
And if we connect this to the bigger picture, it leaves you with something fascinating to explore on your own. If nature so effortlessly optimizes its physical space for such resilience and harmony using these exact rules, well, what geometric shape does the architecture of your own daily thoughts most closely resemble?
Wow. Are your thoughts running in rigid straight lines or growing like a beautifully connected fractal? The math is out there, just waiting for you to stop consuming the scenery and start reading the blueprints.